Hello friends. So this video is about Indian land fields, India, and I guess you could kind of call it is that my knowledge of land fields has been based on my own personal observations, but I've also been reading the observations of other people about these land fields when I was kind of new to it, and Indian land fields were always painted in a bit of a negative light. And I never really understood that. I think when I first started off, I just, accepted it. Maybe they were saying just because, oh, it's Indians, it's low wage earners, they're just automatically going to be a poor quality Enfield. However, that's never been my experience, guys. I have the utmost. I totally adore Indian Lee Enfields. I think they're fantastic, and there's a few reasons for that. They're different. They're definitely different. It's been a long day, so I'm having a brewski. Those Indian Enfields served in places of the world where British and Australian SMLEs did not, to any great extent. The Indian Army deployed millions of these rifles to exceedingly good effect during World War II. And what was, you see many of these Indian Enfields are GRI marked. And GRI is essentially, before India had declared independence, Georgius Rex Imperator, King George. And then when India declared independence, they officially adopted the Royal Factory Ishapore. Now it's the same factory, right? After they went independent, they changed a few things about their Enfields that made them kind of unique. The Royal Factory Ishapores. But things like the wood. If you're going to be... I made a video about this some time ago. It had to do with Mosing the Gants. Sit with a boat here. Had to do with Mosing the Gants. And what I was trying to tell people is that if you're going to use a rifle that's being deployed in sub-freezing conditions in the Arctic, basically, you're going to want to build that rifle. You're going to want to stock that rifle with a wood species that is grown in the Arctic, that is tempered to growing and existing in a frozen environment. That wood is has evolved over millions of years to be able to do that. It's not going to crack. It's not going to break. Same thing applies for jungle warfare. If you're going to want to use a wood-stocked rifle in a jungle, you're going to want to construct it out of a wood that is grown in the jungle. That makes sense, right? Simple biology. How well do you think a tropical species is going to do in freezing conditions? Yeah, it's probably going to split. And vice versa. If you're going to use something that was grown in an Arctic environment and you put it into a tropical environment, it's probably going to swell and crack because of all the water. In fact, Indian Enfields and pretty much all Enfields that were utilized in these tropical areas, such as Burma, for example, during World War II, were painted. The metal was painted because they just were rusting so badly. Lots of these Indian Enfields, you open them up and it's green underneath the wood because they just pit and rust. Because it's make a mess of the rifles. Always wet. So, when it comes to judging Indian Enfields versus Canadian Enfields versus Australian Enfields versus British Enfields, what I can tell you is that they are unique. They are different. But they're different for a very, very valid reason. India, actually, and people from Pakistan, Punjab, they deployed so many soldiers to the theater and equipped them with rifles that bloody well worked. Now, I'm currently working on a Royal Factory Ishapore #1 Mark III star, and it was manufactured in 1953, so it's a post-war model. It's got the different machining steps. It's got the squared stripper clip, reloading groove, and it's got the squared nose cap, and it's got the Meranti wood. It's not mahogany, folks. It's a species called Meranti. Sharia is the Latin name for the species. There's 196 different genus of that species. About 146 of them they're a listed species. They're endangered now. They've been logged out of these tropical islands, the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, India. But that's what they used to stock their rifles. You know, there's 5 main subgroups, I guess you'd say, of those 196 species, genus, excuse me. But Meranti is pretty much the lowest common denominator for all of them. They look like mahogany, but it's not mahogany. It's a totally different species. And this wood species, it's in a lot of different products that people use from day to day, like door jambs. I mean, it's almost always this Meranti. Beautiful wood, I love it. But that's what these Indian Enfields are stocked in. It's Meranti. It's not mahogany. Mahogany is only in Africa and South America. You think the Indians are going to go to South America or Africa to get the wood to stock their Enfields in? No, they're going to use what they have locally, and that is called Meranti. And across Southeast Asia, that was the same thing. I can just imagine in the Philippines, some buyer coming into their office and saying, "Hey, I want mahogany. Do you have any mahogany here in the Philippines?" And of course they're going to say, "Yeah, we have Philippine mahogany." That's just somebody, using, how should we say, the artistic flair of capitalism, redefining terms and species and whatnot to fill a market niche. And it has all of the similar characteristics of break strength, compression, and so on. So, and the draws, for example, of a Lee Enfield rifle, you want to make sure that you have a species that's going to be able to take a little bit of recoil and not crush the wood. And it's totally suitable for that purpose, right? So you're going to use a wood species that is grown in a tropical environment and used in a tropical environment. It's like feng shui, for example. You're going to build your house out of wood that was grown on a north aspect because that's where your house is being built. It's on a north aspect. It's that feng shui idea, and it's so true. Certain wood species types, whether they're resinous or porous wood, they're going to react to the elements differently if they're not grown in that environment naturally as a native species. That's a little bit of food for thought when it comes to the Indian Enfields. What I can also tell you is that my grandfather fought with the Indian Army, the 26th Indian Division. He spent a lot of time in India. He spent a lot of time in Burma fighting against the Japanese, probably with an Indian Enfield, to be honest with you. And used it to really, really good effect. Right? Those Japanese people going up against Indian Enfields in the jungles. And heck, if it weren't for India, who knows what North America would look like today. I'll give that some thought. What I can say retrospectively is that my grandfather thought very highly of the Indian Army, of the Sikhs, the Punjab, and He said they were absolutely fearless warriors, fantastic soldiers, very professional and by the book. They even gave the Germans a problem in North Africa. These were excellent soldiers. These Indian soldiers. And he had nothing but respect for them. And there was one chap, his name was Havildar Parkash Singh. My grandfather met him, Victoria Cross winner, recipient, not a winner, he's a recipient of the Victoria Cross because he went and fighting against the Japanese under fire and did an incredible thing with Bren gun carriers, saving other Bren gun carriers and men that were wounded and couldn't get out of the pocket they were in. He went in there and saved them all. These are some serious kick-ass dudes. And if my grandfather said they were good, they're good. Anyway, looking forward to showing you some more information on this really cool Indian Enfield. I'll give you a little bit of a kind of a background on a future video and show you how they shoot. But right now I'm putting it through a restoration process, and that'll be a different video. But I just want to give you a bit of a heads up on these really cool Enfields. Are they the best? Are they the worst? No, they're on par. They're a brother Enfield, and they're great rifles. If somebody offers you an Indian Enfield, I'm not saying that they're worth any more or any less, but they're great. Cheers, folks. Maple leaf up.
And we set about jungle training. Now, the reason we did that was that we weren't trained to fight in the jungle. This was one of the problems with it, with the British and Indian troops. When I was in North Africa, I learned all the sounds and the noises in the desert, and I could identify the noises. I could tell you whether it was a Matilda tank or a Stuart tank miles away. I could tell you any unusual sound that was normal to the desert. So you weren't worried, because fears created by the unknown. Now, when we went into Burma, there's all sorts of noises. There's animals, there's birds, there's snakes, there's all sorts of things. And at night time in particular, in the daytime you're not listening to these noises, but at night time everything's silent, and as far as we're concerned. You can't smoke, you can't speak, you can't move, and you just sit and listen to all these noises, and until you are able to identify them, you don't know what it is.